Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to discuss my second report, which is related to the country of Brunei or Brunei Darussalam. So first, let's tackle their geography. And as you can see in the illustration I provided, it is located nearly north side to the Philippines. So unlike Philippines, which islands are shattered, Brunei is consisting of two unconnected parts on the island of Borneo. It is located on the coast of Borneo and is only about 1% of the whole island, also bordered by the West Philippine Sea north and Malaysia elsewhere. The state of Brunei Darussalam is located on the northwest coast of the island of Borneo and is bordered and bifurcated by the eastern Malaysia. Brunei is a small country with a landmass of 2,226 square miles, possesses substantial oil and natural gas reserves, and is located along the strategically and economically important sea lanes of the South China Sea. Brunei is a predominantly Sunni Muslim state with a population of more than 420,000, consisting of mostly ethnic Malays and substantial ethnic Chinese minority. Brunei's capital is Bandar Seri Begawan and has a total area of 5,770 square meter kilometer. So let's now proceed to Brunei's type of government. First is absolute monarchy, next is constitutional monarchy, then unitary and Islamic state. So you might ask, what are the difference between absolute monarchy and constitutional monarchy? So a constitutional monarchy or a limited monarchy is a form of constitutional government wherein either an elected or hereditary monarch is the head of state. Unlike in an absolute monarchy, wherein the king or the queen is the sole source of political power, as he or she is not legally bound by the national constitution. The constitutional monarchy's government, its law, are the government in the law of a limited monarchy. And Islamic State, which forms of government is based on Islamic law since majority of the people living in here are Muslim. So this table below explains the summary of each branch of the Brunei's government. Under in the executive branch, the Sultan has absolute executive authority. It appoints legislative council members in Supreme Court. The election process is the Sultan and Prime Minister is hereditary, and the election cycle is hereditary as well. Next is the judicial branch, where the Supreme Court is the highest court of the land and Sharia deals with Islamic law matters. The election process under this branch is Supreme Court judges are appointed by the monarch. So the Sharia Court of Appeal Justice is appointed by the monarch, while the election process is Supreme Court judges can serve until the age of 65. Sharia Court of Appeal judges have no term limits. Next is legislative branch. The legislative council, or also known as cabinet members here in the Philippines, is the Sultan's think tank or his advisor. So the legislative council has 33 members who are appointed by the Sultan, and election cycle is until the dismissal by Sultan. So this is Sultan Haji Hassan al-Bolkiah. So since Brunei is an absolute monarchy government, the Sultan is the head of state, prime minister, minister of finance, defense, and foreign affairs and trade at the same time. So he handles a lot of power, yet he also handles a lot of responsibility. Also, fun fact, the Sultan is one of the world's wealthiest men. So a Sultan is advised by a 13-member cabinet as well as the religious council, privy council, and legislative council, all of whom are appointed by the monarch. So again, Brunei's legal system is based on the combination of British common law and Indian penal code. Its legal system was amended in 2014 to include Islamic law, Sharia, Kali, Sharia. So we will examine later what is Sharia law. So let's now move on to the national power of Brunei. So according to its Department of Economic Planning and Statistics, Brunei's gross domestic product in 2019 was 18.4 billion Bruneian dollars, or approximately 13.5 billion US dollars. Its per capita GDP in 2019 was 40,000 Bruneian dollars, or approximately 29,400 US dollars. So Brunei's economy is by the extraction and export of crude oil and natural gas. which provide about 60% of the country's gross domestic product. So the government uses revenue from the state energy company, the Brunei National Petroleum Corp, to subsidize infrastructure development and extensive social programs. Declining offshore oil reserves combined with lower oil prices present a challenge for the country's development. In recent years, the Brunei's government has tried to promote international tourism and domestic food production to diversify its economy and reduce its reliance on imported food. So the DEPS states Brunei's merchandise exports in 2019 totaled in 9.9 billion Bruneian dollars or 7.3 billion in US dollars. Merchandise imports were worth 7 billion Bruneian dollars or also known as 5.2 billion dollars in US. Next is Brunei Darussalam foreign policy. Objective is to promote the country's national interest, taking into account of its situation and role in the region and globally, preserve the political, cultural, and religious identity of the country, help promote regional and global peace, security, stability, and prosperity. Now is the Brunei's international relation. Below are Brunei's leading trading partners, Japan, the People's Republic of China, and Singapore. So major sources for inward foreign direct investment in Brunei are China, Malaysia, Singapore, and United Kingdom, mostly in Brunei's natural resources sector. A founding member of the Trans-Pacific Strategic Economic Partnership in 2006, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Economic Prosperity in East Asia. It currently has 18 members. Russia and the United States are officially joined in 2011, and joint cooperation afloat readiness and training exercise in Brunei. Next is the relationship of Brunei with US. So the United States established a diplomatic relations with Brunei in 1984, following its independence from the United Kingdom. In 1994, the two nations signed a memorandum of understanding on defense cooperation. More recently, U.S. relations with Brunei have focused on Brunei's role in addressing maritime, territorial, and sovereignty disputes in the South China Sea, Brunei's role in ASEAN, and the implementation of Sharia law in Brunei. Also, one of the largest cooperative U.S.-Brunei initiative of recent year was Brunei-U.S. English Enhancement Program for ASEAN, a Brunei-funded joint program run by the University Brunei Durassalam in the East-West Center in Honolulu. The program, launched in 2012, provides an English language education to government officials, diplomats, and teachers from other ASEAN nations. So, in terms of defense cooperation, Brunei and the United States have engaged in military to military cooperation for many years. A bilateral memorandum of understanding on defense cooperation was signed on November 29, 1994. Brunei's armed forces engage in joint exercise, training programs, and other military activities with the United States. So Brunei's cadets attends U.S. military academies. In August 2018, Brunei and the United States held their first bilateral army exercises, focusing on the area of potential cooperation such as jungle warfare and combat in urban terrain. So in addition, U.S. security interests in Brunei focus on two issues. The first is the maintenance of safe passage through sea lanes in South China Sea and the prevention of attacks by pirates and terrorists. The second is international efforts to address multilateral territorial and sovereignty disputes in the South China Sea. So just like the Philippines, Brunei is one of four Southeast Asian nations that has territorial disputes with China and the South China Sea. Brunei makes claim to 200 nautical mile continental shelf exceeding from its mainland, which encompasses some land features in the Spratly Islands and which overlaps with the nine-dash line that China uses to demark its own claims. So, unlike Philippines, which South China Sea has been the focus of the government for the past few years, Brunei has not been involved in a frequent incidents that see that some other claimants have, particularly the Philippines and Vietnam. So now we move on to Sharia law or Sharia Islamic law or Sharia law is a religious law forming part of the Islamic tradition. It is derived from the religious precepts of Islam, particularly the Quran and the Hadith. On May 1, 2014, Brunei began the implementation of the first phase of a new Sharia penal code that, unless specified in the code, applies to everyone in the nation regardless of religion. Some aspects of the new penal code have been subjected to international condemnation from various sources. So United Nations cited the code's provision for death by stoning for blasphemy, rape, sodomy, homosexuality, and extramarital sex as evidence that the code violates international human rights standards. Some members of the Congress have expressed concern at the code's restrictions on the practice of Christianity and its implication for the LGBT community. So according to World Watch Monitor, a Christian advocacy organization, in March 2018, Brunei Sultan and his Islamic Religious Council reportedly approved a draft of criminal code that would facilitate the introduction of harsher punishments for serious crimes such as the amputation of limbs for theft. And that's all. So I hope you learned something today. Thank you.